Apparently, all sports are rigged. At least that's what the majority of you guys told me in the comments from my last video on the subject. Though I don't entirely believe that, clearly there have been some moments that raised an eyebrow or two, and some that came with hard evidence. And so, with your comments, I found 5 more blatantly rigged moments in sports. This one is all on you. Before I get into this, I want to thank SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. SeatGeek is an outstanding app that aggregates ticket prices from all over the web, gives them a color-coded and numeric rating so that you can see what kind of deal you're getting, lets you see the view from your seats before you walk in, and is done safely and securely right on your smartphone. I love the convenience factor of not having to worry about bunk tickets from a scalper. You know that QR code gonna work and you will take your happy butt into that arena and watch your team kick some tail. Download the SeatGeek app from the link below, enter in the code FPG in the Me tab, and get $20 back on your first order. SeatGeek! Number 5. The Disgrace of Gyan. Overwhelmingly, the comment section was wrought with named soccer games, from the Hand of God game to Champions League contests, but no more was there a more concrete case of rigging than in 1982 when West Germany faced Austria in the World Cup during group play. Real quick, hey soccer fan, hit that like button, I'm talking about soccer here. The game was played in Spain and was the last of the first round group play, with West Germany trailing both the group leading Austria and the surprising Algerians who had shocked the Germans 2-1 earlier in the tournament. However, all Germany needed to do was beat Austria by 1 or 2 goals and both teams would easily advance to the next round. And that's exactly what the 2 neighboring countries orchestrated, as Germany scored within 10 minutes of the opening bell, and the 2 teams decided to play about as hard as Eric Flowers does for the rest of the game. It was seriously quite noticeable, as there were a lot of passes back to the goalie, a lot of standing around, weak slide tackling, pretty much about as exciting as your normal soccer game, but somehow less exciting. You knew I couldn't resist taking a shot at soccer, right? The score ended 1-0 and both teams advanced, and if you actually look at it, it made sense for Austria to throw the match and lose their group, as they ended up in a better bracket in the next round. However, they got eliminated their next game. Germany made it all the way to the final, where they lost to the Azzurri 3-1. And Algeria, they were pissed. They launched a formal protest, and rightfully so. As a result of this game, group play has now been changed so that the last 2 matches of the group play happen simultaneously, so that the outcome cannot be, at least on the surface, be rigged like this one was. Ah, poor Algeria. It seems like someone always gets to advance at their expense. Number 4, a gift from a friend. It's amazing how I didn't include this one in the first video, as I was actually there in person at this game. My ex-girlfriend, who is now my wife, see what I did there, bought me tickets to see my first Giants game in the Meadowlands as they took on the Packers on the last day of the season in January 2002. 2001 was an incredibly weird sports year, as 9/11 happened, and this game was actually scheduled to be played mid-season but was moved to the end of the year, and it was bitterly cold that day, and I thought I was going to get frostbite. Michael Strahan had been having a monster year and came into the game with 21.5 sacks, a full sack away from mullet sporting Mark Gastineau for the single season record. Unfortunately for Strahan, the Packers were really good that year, and all I saw during the game was high motor wide receiver Bill Schroeder torch the Giants and Strahan, though he came close, not get enough pressure on Favre to really scare him. Until the 4th quarter, when one of the most rigged moments I have ever seen happened. Okay, what's even funnier about this is I had a view from the end zone, and you can't really see it in this clip, but Green Bay had the formation stack left, no receivers to the right, and when they snapped the ball, everyone crashed left. Hard. I think even the wideouts dove. When Favre bootlegged out to the right, there wasn't a single Green Bay Packer in the same zip code. It was pretty obvious Favre called a dive left and then pulled back the handoff and headed right, knowing Strahan would be unblocked. Like, not even a question, and gave Strahan the sack record. Of course, as Giants fans, we all stood up and cheered, mostly because the activity let us warm up, and even though it was a blatantly rigged moment, it still was pretty cool. And despite the ink being dry on the record, Strahan and Favre still get crap for this, although I doubt really either of them care. Number 3, let's not be judged. You knew the Olympics, an organization that is about as straight up as a mountain road, was going to be on this list. And though I don't consider ice skating to be a sport necessarily, I know one thing: this moment was rigged like one of those fancy schooners. And before you challenge me that ice skating is not a sport, here's a picture of its best athlete. In 2002, in the already marred with scandal Salt Lake City Winter Olympics, Canadians Jamie Soleil and David Pelletier ice skated the crap out of their routine. Like, however you ice skate more than anyone else ice skates, they did it. But when they went to the judge scorecards, somehow they finished second behind guess who? The Russians. Now look here, I'm not gonna pretend I understand how figure skating judging works, nor even try to explain it because I don't care enough to research it. But right after it was announced that the Russians had won, cheating allegations rose immediately. It's kind of like a fight where one guy beats the living tar out of another, but somehow the other guy wins, except here one couple outspin the other or something. Eventually, it was discovered that the French judge admitted that she was pressured to give the gold to the Russians in exchange for the French skaters to win the ice dancing gold. Oh, sneaky, sneaky, you guys. Eventually, the whole thing was linked to Russian organized crime, and the whole scoring system was changed to make judging anonymous and harder to rig. Man, times must have been tough in Russia for the mob to fix ice skating. Number 2, randomly fixed. Though they have perfected it, tanking isn't something the 76ers invented. In fact, in the NBA, tanking has a richer history than the Ming Dynasty. And in 1985, the NBA set out to stop it. And 30 years later, well, yeah. Anyways, in 1984, the biggest asshole in professional sports ever, Donald Sterling, figured something out that he implemented through his entire ownership of the Clippers. He could win through losing. And in that season, his then San Diego Clippers tanked so hard that this year's Padres would get jealous. And even funnier than that, they weren't even the best at losing, as the year earlier the Rockets told them to hold their beer and man down to the tune of losing 20 of the last 27 games and took over the worst spot in the conference, essentially guaranteeing them at least a top 2 pick in the upcoming 1984 draft, which they turned into Hakeem the Dream. We'll get back to Sterling's racist ass in a few seconds. Oh, but David Stern, who didn't want this league to be seen as a total farce, conspired up a plan to stop this insolent behavior, and thus the NBA draft lottery was born. With Patrick Ewing coming out after his senior year at Georgetown, he was one of the most highly desired college players ever. David Stern designed the draft lottery to stop one man, that snake Donald Sterling. Stern set it up so that any team that did not make the playoffs would have an equal 14% chance of getting the first pick and the highly desired Ewing. But you know how the NBA works. Just because something seems fair doesn't mean it is. And the Knicks, coming off their worst season in years being in the pool, having a generational talent show up in the Garden would be good for business. Not just for the Knicks, for young David Stern too. The other teams in the lottery, the Kings, the Hawks, the Pacers, yeah, scrub teams at the time. Of course, Stern had to set up his kangaroo farce to make his rigging believable, and he chose not only to televise the lottery, but do it live during the halftime of a playoff game. And the format he chose for his random drawing? Envelopes placed in a drum drawn out by him and him alone. In fact, if you see the film, the 4th envelope to go in gets creased, and which envelope did he pull out first? Dang, this dude is more slick than John Dornbos. Of course, the Knicks got the first pick, and Patrick Ewing got to spend a lifetime in the Garden choking away opportunities to be the savior he was touted to be, in fact losing out to the guy who was brought in through legitimate tanking. Did I just say legitimate tanking? Number 1, the Pac-Man cometh. I have no doubt the success of the first video in this series is completely owed to the fact that boxing is the most crooked sport in the world. Thank you, boxing. You make this channel so much better, and by better, I mean you pretty much give me endless material. Boxing, even though it is indeed a combat sport where 2 people beat the living snot out of each other, it does kind of have an Achilles heel, and that heel is the judge's scorecard. Anytime you lend subjectivity to a sport that has the objective of hitting someone in the face, you're gonna get some head-scratching results. And in addition to that, involving a small group of humans to decide who a winner is versus a posted scoreboard invites errors, bias, and outright corruption. And on July 2nd, 2017, though we don't don't know which one of these categories this falls into, we do know that Manny Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn was some absolute bullshit. The fight, dubbed the Battle of Brisbane, featured the aging Manny versus hometown favorite Horn literally fighting in his hometown. And boy, did he get some hometown cooking from the judges, as the WBO welterweight title fight went the distance. Though it was nearly put to an end in the 9th round when Pac-Man turned it up and proceeded to transform Horn's face into a used surgical rag. The fight went the distance, and it was widely felt that Pacquiao certainly did enough to retain the belt, and the fight stats reflect that, as Pac-Man landed 182 punches to Horn's 92, nearly double, and Horn's face looked like he went on an all-night bender with Charlie Sheen, and Manny pretty much looked like he always does, but most anybody who has seen a boxing match in their life would say Manny didn't just win the fight, but that the outcome was hella rigged. I can't think of any other recent incidents where that has happened in boxing either. Can you guys help me out with that? Agree with my list? Think I left any off? You know the deal. Leave your comments down below, punch that like button in its like button face, and please subscribe and hit the ding ding bell for more vids like this. And do not forget to download the SeatGeek app from the link below and get $20 back on your first order. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you and I made it to the end of this video.